A lot of people complain about their relationship troubles on social media, but can you imagine getting killed for doing so? Stay tuned. We're going to talk about the murder of Seath Jackson. In the spring of 2011, Seath Jackson was 15 years old. He was living in Summerfield, Florida. On the afternoon of April 19, 2011, Seath's parents realized that he was missing. The night before, he went to a friend's home. But that afternoon, that friend called looking for him. Seath's friend said that while Seath was at his home, he received a phone call from his ex-girlfriend. After Seath got the call, he decided to go up and meet with his ex-girlfriend. This was the last time his friend saw or heard from him. Seath's parents then reported him missing, and detectives began to look for him. The first place they turned to was Facebook. They learned that in December of 2010, Seath started dating 15-year-old Amber Wright, but in late March of 2011, Amber broke it off with him. Seath thought that the breakup was sudden and came from nowhere. He was so distraught and depressed he didn't know what to do with himself. Soon, Seath and Wright were feuding on Facebook. They fought and insulted each other for several weeks publicly on the social media platform. Seath also started feuding with 17-year-old Kyle Hopper and 18-year-old Michael Bargo. Hopper was Amber Wright's brother, and he didn't like the way that Seath talked about his sister on Facebook. Michael Bargo was Wright's new boyfriend. Seath thought that Wright dumped him to date Bargo. The Facebook posts seemed to indicate that at some point Seath and Bargo got into a physical fight at a party. Seath was 15 when he won that fight against 18-year-old Bargo. Bargo thought of himself as a tough guy and felt pretty humiliated. After the fight, the war on Facebook escalated. Based on the Facebook posts, police thought that it was wise to talk to Amber Wright. When the police arrived at Wright's home, she was there with her friend, Charlie Ellie. Wright and Charlie claimed that they saw Seath the night before. The detectives separated them and asked about their encounter with Seath. They gave two very different stories. Charlie said that she and Wright were standing with Seath on a street corner near her home. Suddenly, there was a loud bang and Seath ran away. Charlie said she looked around and saw Bargo with a gun. She said she thought Seath was shot, but she wasn't sure. Amber's story was completely different. She said that she bumped into Seath, they talked for a few minutes, and then he left. She said she thought he went home. When asked if Bargo was there, she said no. She said she had no idea what Charlie was talking about. The detectives continued to investigate, but there was no trace of Seath that night. The next morning, Amber Wright's mother called the police. She said that her son and Amber's brother Kyle had information on Seath's disappearance. The police asked her to bring them to the station. Charlie was also brought in for questioning. Hopper claimed that 2 nights earlier they were hanging at Charlie's house and Seath was there. Then he said that Bargo surprised everyone by shooting Seath 3 times. Next, Amber and Charlie were interviewed. They said that Bargo killed Seath and that they were innocent. After the interview, Amber, Charlie, and Hopper were put into a room together and left alone. They had no idea that they were being recorded. They talked openly about Seath's murder, and that's when it became clear that they were lying to the detectives. They talked about how they planned the murder. It became clear Bargo wanted to kill Seath. Everyone else agreed to help because they didn't like what Seath had said on Facebook. The police continued to investigate Seath's disappearance, and they were able to retrace his steps. Kyle Hopper ended up making a full confession that night. He filled in the rest of what had happened. It started with Amber luring Seath to Charlie's house with a promise of reconciliation. Seath had no idea that Hopper and Bargo were there waiting for him with their other friend, Justin Soto. When Seath walked inside, the three men attacked him with blunt wooden objects. Seath tried to run away, but Bargo shot him twice in the back with a rifle. Seath tried to run again, so Soto tackled him, and then held him down while Bargo shot him in the back of the head. Then they dragged him upstairs and put his body into the bathtub. They tried to put him into a sleeping bag, but his body didn't fit. So then they tried to break his knees. That is when they realized that he was still alive. Bargo shot him in the head again as he laid in the bathtub, this time killing him. They dismembered him and threw his body parts into a bonfire that was already started in the backyard. A few hours later, they put his ashes into paint buckets. Bargo then called his 37-year-old friend, James Haven, over for assistance. Haven helped dispose of the ashes by throwing them into a water-filled quarry. Haven then dropped Bargo off at a friend's home in a neighboring town. The police found human bone fragments in Charles' backyard in the fire pit. 4 days after the murder, 18-year-old Michael Bargo, 16-year-old Kyle Hopper, 20-year-old Justin Soto, 15-year-old Amber Wright, and 18-year-old Charlie Ellie were arrested and charged with murder. 37-year-old James Haven was arrested and charged as an accessory to murder. In 2012, Wright, Hopper, Ellie, and Soto were convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Bargo was said to be the ringleader and mastermind behind it all and was sentenced to death in 2013. He appealed his sentence and had a retrial, but was once again sentenced to death in 2018.
Thank you for watching The Felon Files. Don't forget to subscribe to be a member of the True Crime Clan and see other videos like this.